It is so refreshing for us to see so many cool faces, neat faces, excited faces, and family members and friends to be here. So we're excited, and we will get rolling if you don't mind. Amy, would you mind doing roll call for us?
Commissioner Ashford.
Here.
Commissioner Banks.
Here.
Commissioner Haslett. Commissioner Schwerin.
Here.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to May. We had some opening comments that we're going to make, but in light of the festivities we're going to enjoy today as we do some promotions and some swearing-ins and some life savings awards and some other things, we do want to take a moment to reflect. It's been for those of you who are aware, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. We have had 3 breakfasts that are memorial breakfasts. Those memorials are a testament to those those of you who have unfortunately given your lives in the line of duty. We've celebrated at the state those lives, in addition to offering our condolences and certainly our respect. And next week, a lot of you, a lot of this department and other departments will congregate in Washington, D.C. to do it one more time. So if you stop and think about that, we've celebrated our own and what they gave to all of us here in St. Louis County. We've celebrated with the city. We've celebrated across the St. Louis region just this morning. We've celebrated in the state of Missouri, and now we'll celebrate nationally. One last comment as we put around that. I don't know the numbers, so please don't quote these numbers. They are going to be general numbers, and we get a little difference every time we hear. But at a memorial breakfast this morning, they talked about in the last 10 years, there have been almost 2,700 law enforcement officers have given their lives in the line of duty. In the Missouri last 10 years, it's about 260. Sorry, that was last year. And this year already in the state of Missouri, it's been 33. So the point of that is we recognize what you do day in, day out, takes your life into risk as you try to save ours. And we are deeply, deeply appreciative of that. So if you don't mind, just one more moment of silence for those of us who've preceded us in this role, certainly for those of us who've given their lives to protect all of us. If you'll take just a moment to respect them and to celebrate them, we would appreciate it. Thank you for reflecting with us. If they were here, I unfortunately didn't know any of them, but if they were here, I imagine they would be sitting here celebrating with us as we do a lot of the fun stuff before we get into the work. For those of you who are guests, we will do several presentations, some swearing in, some promotions, some other awards, and then we'll pause for a moment as you are free to go unless you want to stay through the entire meeting, which will last about another 12 or 13 hours. Thank you. But you are welcome to go.
It just feels that way.
It just feels that way? Oh, thank you. Anyway, so we'll get on. Anything else from an open discussion standpoint? Oh, sorry, Pledge of Allegiance. My bad. If you'll join us, rise and join us in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anything else from an open discussion standpoint? All right. Oh, sure, no problem.
Was this your spot?
Oh, no. You're So, Chief, we believe we've got a couple of swearing-ins. We have 3 people to be sworn in.
Yes, 3 people from Washington University. Step forward, please.
Gentlemen, please come up. Yes, sir. So, thank you. We're going to ask you to take a deep breath. Nobody's watching us. They're just listening to us, all right? Thank you. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. We're going to go through 2 of these. You're going to repeat after me on the first one, and the second one's just a comment made to you about your authority. Fair enough? Deep breath. Ready to go? All right. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States and a resident of the state of Missouri. That I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States, the state of Missouri, and the Charter and ordinances of St. Louis County, that I will faithfully adhere to the regulations provided in the rules and procedures for deputization as adopted by St. Louis County, and that I will faithfully demean myself as a deputized officer of St. Louis County, so help me God. Congratulations. Very well done. Before we ask you to go out and protect us like you always do, there's one more thing we need to read to you, and it is, as a deputized officer for St. Louis County, your authority is restricted to the protection of persons and property on the Washington University campus. Got it? Gentlemen, thank you for protecting our kids, our students, our teachers, the rest of us who come and visit. It's a pleasure to have you as part of this group. Thank you very much. And I think next we have some awards to hand out, some service awards. This is a lot of fun to do, so thank you. Service stars, thank you. Service awards, service stars. So we're going to call your name. We are going to ask you to come up. Chief, if you have any ad libs that you want to do about some of these people, feel free to. It is up to you, but we'll just run down the list. You don't have it. All right. Not today. All right. So starting with 30 years, Ms. Sherry Brackens in the Human Resources Division, the Personnel Services Unit. 30 years. Sherry, thank you very much. On behalf of all of us, thank you.
You're gonna be a child.
Still is.
Child labor laws.
Yes. Thank you, Sherry.
Should we just continue?
20 years, Police Officer Ezra White from Central County Precinct. Officer White, thank you for your service. Very much so. Thank you greatly.
All right, Ed. Good seeing you.
Celebrating 15 years with deep gratitude, we have an Office of the Chief of Police, Christina Fosdick, Sergeant, Bureau of Professional Standards. What's also with 15 years in the Division of Patrol, Sergeant Brandon Faisal, that pronounced right? North County Precinct. How bad did I butcher it? Faisal. Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you. Thanks for your service, man.
In the Division of Special Operations with 15 years, Police Officer Ryan Bruschka, Tactical Operations Unit.
Congratulations, man. Thanks.
Also with 15 years of service from the Division of Operational Support, Vehicle and Safety Supply Unit, Mr. Brian Slattery. Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Keep us rolling.
Moving to 10 years in the Office of the Chief of Police and the Bureau of Research and Analysis, Sergeant Kimberly Miner. Congratulations. We will see Sergeant up here again in a moment. In the Division of Patrol, celebrating 5 years of service, Police Officer Wesley Pierce in Afton Southwest Precinct. And also with 5 years of service, Division of Patrol in North County Precinct, Police Officer Colin Buchendorf. Close enough. Well, thank you for your patience. Thank you all for your years of service, for your protection of all of us, for helping us maintain the type of lifestyle that we want to live. We are greatly appreciative and look forward to seeing all of you up here at some point. Did we miss anybody that we were supposed to have? Anybody that we just walked by? All right. Thank you again for your years of service. For those of you who support them, we appreciate all of your support very much so. Chief, I think with that, we're going to turn it over to you.
Sir, appreciate it. Just want to concur with the words that Commissioner Ashworth had to say about our resident heroes in reference to the way we celebrate them now, the way we celebrate their families. As I've always said, and you've always heard, they will never ever be forgotten.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your respect. I want to start out with a life-saving award presented by Captain Kelly. These officers come forward, please. Police Officer Christopher O'Fallon. Police Officer Mike Conley. Police Officer Andrew McHugh.
I got a full bottle.
Police Officer Joseph Dawkins. Police Officer James Borzillo. Police Officer Jacob Myers. And Police Officer Andrew Husky.
Good morning. Good morning, members of the Board of Police Commissioners, Chief, ladies and gentlemen. On January 26th, 2022, police officers from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department were in pursuit of a vehicle wanted for kidnapping and homicide that occurred earlier that day. Officers from the 1st Precinct and 8th Precincts, as well as officers from the Special Response Unit, responded to assist as they heard that the pursuit was entering St. Louis County. The pursuit ended at West Florissant and Lang Drive, where gunfire was exchanged between at least one of the suspects and multiple St. Louis City police officers. 2 of those city police officers were struck by gunfire during this exchange. Officers from the Special Response Unit arrived on the scene, observed potentially life-threatening injuries, and immediately began performing life-saving treatment on the officer struck by gunfire. Officers Husky and Dawkins applied tourniquets and carried police officer Ledbetter to an ambulance. Officer O'Fallon, applied a second tourniquet to Officer Ledbetter and assisted in getting him to the ambulance. Officer Conley and Meyer from the 1st Precinct applied tourniquets to Officer Speece from the City Police Department, carried him to the ambulance, assisted by Officer Borzillo and McHugh, that had to cut away some more of the clothing from Speece to apply the tourniquets tighter. Because of the officers' quick thinking, training, and willingness to put themselves in harm's way to protect their fellow brother officers, we are honored to actually have Officers Ledbetter and Speece here with us today. Officers Ledbetter and Speece, if you'd come forward, please. Because of the heroic actions of these officers, it not only reflects highly on themselves, but of the reputation and image of the St. Louis County Police Department. Congratulations, Officers Husky, Dawkins, McHugh, O'Fallon, Borzillo, Conley, and Meyer. Congrats.
guys got anybody here with you today?
Department family.
This is your apartment family?
Department family.
Apartment family?
My wife, my daughter.
Come on, stand up. Where are you?
Art, stand up. My parents, my brother, and my girlfriend Marissa.
Come on, stand up. Nobody?
Brian Bruska.
That's the best you could do. Huh?
Parents, my sister, and my girlfriend.
Come on, stand up. Officer Steve, thank you for your service, man. Your dad works with us. Proud to have you part of this department. Your dad is part of this department. Thank you for your coverage. That's better. You guys got anybody here with you?
We have one of our partners, Griffin Montgomery, and our sergeant, Chris Rumsa, as
Come
well
on,
as
stand
my
up,
father.
please. All right. You guys want to meet the board?
Thank you. Very well done.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for what you do. Thanks for saving another life. Appreciate it. Thank you. Very well done, man. Thank you. Please, Ledbetter, we'd like to shake your hands too, please. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Everybody's okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Really cool. It's well done.
Okay, since this was a special day, I got dressed up for you, so I'm gonna make some. And, guys get a chance to introduce some of your families, okay? First up, being promoted to Lieutenant Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel Jason Law. Jason Law. And Jason is gonna take over special operations. Family, anybody here with you?
Yes, I'm humbled by the promotion, thank you, Chief.
You're more than welcome.
And I have my mother and father, retired police officer, retired nurse, and my wife,
Stand up.
my 3 kids, they might be scared to stand. And then my beautiful wife.
Promoted to Captain Tim Ware. Captain's gonna stay and run drugs for us, okay?
Yes, sir.
You got it.
Thank you.
Family here?
My wife Emily and my daughter Caroline.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Good one, Captain.
Being promoted to Lieutenant Benjamin Granda. Benjamin's gonna stay put and run the fusion center for us, all right?
Yes, sir.
You sure? You got any family here?
I do. I've got my wife, my 2 boys,
Come on, stand up.
my
All right.
father, sister, and
All right.
Also being presented, promoted to Lieutenant Lisa Garcia.
Yes.
Lisa, I don't know where you're going with it, man. You're going to patrol. That's good enough.
Yes, sir. I have some of my greatest supporters, my husband Corby,
Stand up.
my mom Jenny, and my best friend Heather. And then of course, my boys who give me all the great hair. My tech boys in the back.
Being promoted to Sergeant, Sergeant Kim Minor. Congratulations, you know where you're going.
No, sir.
Anybody here with you? Of course.
My,
Right.
my husband, my daughter, and my blue family.
All right. Being promoted to Sergeant, Sergeant Tim Anderer.
You want me to sergeant sit in the back?
Don't know where you're going yet either.
I do not.
Oh, you do not. Okay, all right. Anybody here with you?
I have my
Show me your plaque.
Oh, thank you. I got my wife Amy, my mom Diane.
Come on, stand up. So the next sergeant is, he couldn't make it the day that I made promotions because he was doing a very important job for us and he refused to leave that job. He was running a golf tournament. So. He got promoted a couple of days later. So, Sergeant Mike Petty. Dedicated to your job, right?
And then my wife Stephanie's here.
Stephanie?
Aberdeen, 8 o'clock. Right? Aberdeen.
The next sergeant couldn't make it on the day I made the promotion, so she had to go to a couple of days also, but she had a real good reason why she couldn't make it. She was babysitting her newborn.
She is, yes, she's 4 weeks old today.
Oh, wow.
We have her, Hannah, and mom and dad.
Oh, look like
Wow. Yeah, that's on both. Wow.
So unfortunately, you guys don't have to hear from this young lady just about every other month, given the financial report. She's awfully thrilled to be doing this. She's taking Joyce Hill's spot. Terry Moran. Everybody give you a report.
Thanks a lot. See you again soon.
Congratulations.
A lot.
Next up from communications, Mr. Othello Austin, we have PSD1 to PSD2.
Here's some Shakespeare fans.
Yes, I'm the biggest cheerleader. My wife Beth, stand up, Beth. Two of my four.
There it goes, Demona. Congratulations, man. All right.
Also from communications, being promoted from PSD1 to PSD2, Mr. Matthew Mullins. Right, anything from here with Martin Field, Department of Family. Being promoted from vehicle and supply, and then to outside analyst, we serve. There's gonna become the Terry Moran, right? Still reluctant to give reports. You good?
Yes, sir.
Anybody with me? I know one for sure. Oh, he couldn't be here. Larry is. One or two?
My husband didn't.
We promoted to police aide, Karen Livingston. Anybody here with you?
Just those two in the back.
What two?
Those two white shirts with them back.
You didn't know those of us in white shirts had that new nickname, white shirts?
No, that was County Brown.
Being promoted to record supervisor is Paula Wunby. Anybody here with you? Your department name. Being promoted to mobile technology specialist two. Dean Kelly. How often do I call you in the office? Quite often, right? Just be honest, man, quite often.
We all gotta have them.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Anybody? Department of Family. Right. To the board, to our audience here, there's some people here that wanted to make mention of their name. They're being awarded for work that they did with the, I'm going to start with the U.S. Attorney's Office. They couldn't be here. Pretty much kind of covers them when you part of them. They wouldn't want you to see their name. I just want to call out their names if that's okay. From the United States case versus Mohammed Ahmed, Sergeant Daniel Hill, United States versus Secretary Canby, Detective Demi Maya Bowman, United States versus Robert Payne, Detective Brian Meadows, Detective Derek Montage, Officer Andrew Rank, Officer Derek Welty, United States versus James O. Jenkins, Detective Robert M. Barkas, and United States versus Robert Peter, Arnold example Steve Kramer, and United States versus Demetrius Johnson, Detective Daniel Hill, and I think that's about it. They're being recognized at the U.S. Attorney's Office today. You know, we always talk about collaboration between our department and the City Police Department. And there's a lot of that going on. The city had one major arrest not too long ago, and these officers played a big part in it. I just wanted to recognize them. Detective James Whiteside, Detective Brian Meadows, Detective Garrett Markins, Detective Randall White, Police Officers Jocelyn Fowler, and Police Officer Matthew Shear. Great job on their part. Welfare Association, Washington.
Scholarships today. Chief, thank you for having us. Commissioners, thank you for having us today. Start with Ted Sigler, Treasurer of the St. Louis County Police Welfare Association. Join with me is Miss Amy Abdermeyer, Secretary of the organization. Those who are not here, the Welfare Association is a charitable organization that is within inside of the St. Louis County Police Department. We have several objectives that we have this year. One, as the Commissioner mentioned, is the Memorial Service, which was last week. Celebrate the lives of our risen heroes. The second is to take a contingency of officers, which we'll be doing at the end of the week, also to celebrate the lives of our risen heroes. A few of the other things, maybe the most important is to finance stop officers and civilians part of the organization in their time. So oftentimes, one of our employees in the St. Louis County Police Department will have some type of catastrophic event. We're there to help them out financially. That's one of the main things that I like being able to do as part of this organization. And the last thing we have here is hand out scholarships. Each year, the Welfare Association hands out 10 or 11 scholarships, each name of one of our risen heroes, to children of our family members. So with that, we'll go ahead and begin. Our first goes to Faith Spicer. Faith Spicer. If you can come forward. So some of the students here we have competitions in school, so this is Officer John Spicer. Sergeant Spicer. Lauren McGee. Lauren, could you come down? Lauren is the daughter of Lieutenant Ed McGee from West County Police. Funny story, I remember riding with Mr. McGee, Lieutenant McGee, the letter we have water on this. Murphy, could you come down? Lily, represented by her father, Detective Sean Murphy from the Fugitive Fair Unit. In honor of Keith Cope, this is Miss Ella Bunster. Ella is the daughter of Sergeant Kristen Engel and Officer Michelle. Congratulations. Mr. Joseph Bradley. Joseph is the son of Daniel Bradley. Thank you. Congratulations. honor of humanity this month, Mr. Maxwell Lewis. Mr. Chad Lewis is the father of Max. He's here to accept his scholarship. In honor of Billy, I don't believe Nick is here today. His son, Sarah Barber. Thomas G. Smith Jr. has staged a house. Daughter of Lisa Allen. Is Lisa here today? And Richard Weinhold, Daniel Parks, and Michael Parks. Daniel Parks, thank you, sir. In honor of Nick Snyder, Abigail Hunt. Abigail is the daughter of Officer Christopher Moon. And last, in honor of Antonio Valentine, thank you. Paige is the daughter of Chad Deacon. Thank you very much. Chief, Commissioners, thank you so much for allowing us to have this honor to award these wonderful students with these scholarships. Scholarships are each for $1,000 that they can use for whatever they choose for their education. I can tell you, each one of them presents a professional resume to the board. We are so very wonderful. You are shining stars of your parents, and thank you so much. Congratulations.
Chief, anything else from that? Thank you. So we're about to take a break. Before we do, the board heard an extended family, right? My department family up here. I want to acknowledge that as board members. We're impressed by all of you, that family, whether it's blood family or relative family that's here supporting you right now, or whether it's the people in white and brown that are here for each one of you and you're here for them. Whether that family is immediate family within St. Louis County or extended family with Metro and maybe even St. Charles. So I want to acknowledge all of you. It's neat to be able to give back a little bit, to watch the Welfare Association give back a little bit for all you give to us, to see you get promoted, to see you earn stripes, to see you get a different color shirt, to see you get whatever it might be, the promotions that go along. We thank you for the life-saving and all the other things that you do day in, day out. It's a lot of fun for us to be able to recognize you and watch the department recognize you as part of that department family. So with that, we thank you. For those of you who don't want to stick around for the remaining 12 hours,
Make a run for it.
Make a run for it, as Mr. Banks says. Make a run for it. We'll take about a 2 or 3 minute break to allow you to say goodbyes and shakes and congratulates and get pictures. And you're welcome to stay, but enjoy. Thank you for being here to support your office. That was great. That's the best part of it.
Got time to hit the back?
Yes, sir. I'm going to go, I'm going to file it. Thank you. Do you need one? Do you have one? With the black things with bands that go on?
Well, thank you. So, yeah, thanks.
So glad I didn't have to come up there. Thank you very much.
Not today. Okay. Thank you.
We made him.
Thank you.
We found the opportunities, but
That
we
would
made
be
him do
wonderful.
all the work. So it was good to see you
Got
guys.
That works. Thank you, Charlie.
I appreciate it.
Must have stood out somehow.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah, I have one with a number on back. I've just been reversing it. I think it's Antonio's number. I asked Charlie for a one just
One of the officers. Nice.
Chief, you want to get them round up? Please.
What? 9:45 at night. Tomorrow night.
Oh.
Fine, so I figured, do I want to fly for hours or do I want to fly?
Which up at what, 2, by the time you get to the hotel, 2-ish? Midnight their time.
I just want to make sure you.
Reconvene.
Sir? Well, they all made a run for it.
I don't blame them.
Is this for me?
It is. We'd asked Rodriguez for a couple, and he brought us.
I asked her where she got hers from. She had one at the memorial. I said, how'd you get that? She said somebody handed it to her.
Yeah. So you, Rodriguez handed yours. Chief, we will tell you that is so much fun to be able to do that. Is to recognize, to reward, to acknowledge, to promote. That's just, we were up here talking and just, that's a lot of fun. So,
Always one of my favorite days.
we get it. We share it with you. All right, we will move on to your chief's report.
Chief's report, first up will be Terry Moran and his budget.
More fun, huh? More fun.
Hi.
Hello.
No
Long
pressure.
time no see. Yeah, no pressure at
Take a
all.
deep breath and just, yep, you're great. The three of us, Commissioner Banks opted not, the three of us agreed that we would not tease you much this first time. So Commissioner Banks can be the one that does all the.
That's all the
He
teasing. I was
wouldn't sign
kind of
on the first
expecting
time.
it.
He's all in on teasing.
I was kind of expecting it. Okay, I don't really know what you want to start with. Do you want to start with budgeting for the next year or talk about this year?
Let's talk about this year.
Okay, so this year, it's about the same as last month. We have probably about a 400 to 500,000 surplus in salaries and fringes, which is cutting it close, in my opinion, but it's still good. It's still on the positive. I look at the pay periods after I look every time after for salaries and the different fringes and overtime. And I look at every time we have a pay date. And it's overtime from last pay period went up about 2%. So that's not terrible, but we know that the summer months are coming up and a lot more of the paid parental leave and things like that make a big difference. And we just don't know how to forecast that quite yet. Operational accounts, it's really too early to tell, but the two big ones I always look at are fuel and vehicle maintenance, and they both look good. So, and then really, I don't have anything for next year's budget. June 1st is the meeting with county government. They call it the budget kickoff. And then it's due in July 7th is when it's due. And then they'll have department meetings in August. Those are unscheduled. It's just the week of the 7th to the 18th, or 2 weeks, I guess it is. So that's really it. I know you have questions. I'm ready.
You're ready.
No?
Yes.
Go
Just
ahead.
want to make sure. No, I want to make
You
sure.
start.
A couple of three. Do you have a year-over-year feel on overtime, moving from the 10 hours to the 12 hours, and what the implication has been on overtime?
It's hard to tell with that because of pay increases and that, and we do go up, but I don't feel like it's increased as much as it did last year. We kind of looked at that, like the first couple pay periods and that. But with the dollar amounts that we had the lateral go through and all the merit increases in January, so it's hard to get a feel. I feel like after the summer months, maybe we'll be able to tell a little bit more if it's less overtime in the summer compared to last year. So I can run that, just, run a report for overtime for summer months compared to last year, 2022 to this year.
Do you have an opportunity? Do we have the data that just does hours as opposed to dollars, knowing what you said is correct? Is there a way to run a report that gives us year-over-year hours of overtime?
I think maybe my friends and, yes.
Yes.
I can come up with dollars, they can come up with hours.
Since your advice makes great sense, we'll wait a little bit longer for the dollars. If you can get us the overtime hours, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Secondly, it's just, yes, please.
Just to clarify, if we're looking year over year, are we asking for 3 years, 5 years?
What we would like to see.
What is pullable? What's a set? 3 years?
Terry, if you'd make it 3 years, great question.
Okay.
If you do it 3 years, that'd be great.
And do you want just the summer months, or do you want to just compare like whenever I come back, like a year to date?
If you could do year-to-dates for each of the previous 3 years and full year for those years, right? We obviously don't have a full year, but I think it'd be helpful to see what happened year over year, maybe a trend line for years. And then if you can just do through May for the last, I guess, 4 years, right? So that would be this.
Okay.
But if summer is our biggest
Yeah.
overtime
It's just
eater,
vacations and, yeah.
if we could break it down by month, I think that would give us more information as to like what we might expect.
Okay. Second is a statement that only being missing by $500,000, whether that's good or favorable or unfavorable, knowing that we were going in a little bit blind on 12-hour shifts, it's just a compliment to the insights and foresight that you all put together to make it happen, because that could swing so wildly to be
It can.
that close.
Thank you, but yeah,
surprising.
every pay period, it can make a big difference.
And have we been given any guidance on the 2024 budget? They haven't said 4%
No.
increase?
I'm
or-
expecting to hear something, at the kickoff meeting, what their guidance is, but that'll be for all departments. And then I think we'll get more of a feel after that. But
20%
no,
for the police
nothing.
department, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
One more
Wait,
question.
Terry?
You're almost. This is just a request.
Yeah.
For our next meeting,
Yeah.
could you provide us actual budgets for all of our accounts?
Yeah, for the current budget? Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That wasn't too hard, was it?
No, that was easy.
No.
Can I go now?
No, wait, we got 10 more questions.
With 4 supports.
Well, how did she do? I thought she did great.
Fantastic.
Well done, Terry.
Terry. Captain Sherman on vacation, so to do crime stats today, Ms. Holly Noble from Research and Analysis.
Colleen, we love to dig down into these details, right?
I've watched and been at a few, so I'm expecting some questions here. I won't be nearly as charismatic as Captain Shellman, but I'll do my best.
We're going to get the screens turned on.
Got it.
Haven't seen it doesn't have a screen. Why those two don't have screens open? You don't? All right.
Yeah, well, they had you set up next to Michelle.
Sharing screens.
Go ahead.
Okay. Our notable events slides, mostly our Bureau of Professional Standards investigations. For citizen complaints, it looks like a large increase with 133%. We're talking much smaller numbers here. We only had 2 that we received in April, which looks a lot more than 2022, but if we look at 2021, it's substantially less than that. So there's a middle ground in there. Internal investigations were down nearly 25%. Use of force were up 55.4%, But when we started after January, we were at 68%, and we've continued to lessen that gap each month as we've gone by. Of those use of force that happened in April, 75% of them were physical restraint, which is the least involved, I guess. And 72% for year-to-date were physical restraint as well. So the majority of them are coming from that. Our department vehicle accidents are still at 14.5%, but again, beginning in January, we were at 58%, and we've continued to decrease those percentages each month as time goes on. Vehicle pursuits, last month we were up 300%, which is pretty alarming. Now it's only 166.7%. We had 4 pursuits in April. Of all of the pursuits for the year, 66% of them were in our North County and Jennings precincts. And then if we throw South County in as well, it's 72%, which follows along with the same trend as like our failure to yields. And then our failure to yields, there are 1,205 so far for this year. 250 of those were in April.
Before you move, the
Yep.
asterisk by the 837 for 2022 year-to-date, what's the asterisk represent?
We didn't start the failure to yield code until the second week of February, so the numbers aren't perfectly comparable. And then the heat map for the failure to yields follows that same thought of first precinct, 8th precinct, and South County. 1st and 8th together are 58% of our failure to yields, and then when we add in South County, it jumps up to 73%. And that's the same place of where we're seeing most of our pursuits as well.
So when we look at this month after month,
Mhm.
it looks very steady and
Yes.
similar. Is there anything that you see from month to month that you think is significant?
Not really with failure to yields. They're all happening in generally the same areas. You'll see some of the outliers and the small bits on the heat map, but generally it's going to be consistently in the same areas each month.
We build off of that question. So when you look at the map, you can certainly see the large representation of red, orange, and yellow, north and south.
Mhm.
But if you scan out just a little bit toward the west of those, you can see 2nd precinct, you can see down in the west precinct, and there's just other hot spots out there.
The little hotspot in the 2nd precinct that's just west of Jennings would be like 70 and Lucas and Hunt area, which is a common place that we'll hit off of. And that general area is the highway, so it's going to be a higher spot there. Another spot in the 2nd precinct is at 270 and Olive-ish area. So that's another point that's showing up.
Okay, thank you. So we've identified it, and we have, at least those precincts are aware of them.
Mhm.
Very good.
For our highlights, we are up in arrests. We had 850 this month. Last month was 794, so it's an increase of 56 arrests for the month. Guns seized were down. We were 129 last month, so we're down 35 to be at 94 this month. And DWI reports, we are up 19 reports. Last month was a low month for DWIs, but we have 52 of those came from Highway Safety Unit this month. For our crimes against persons, homicide is down nearly 20%, which is always a good thing. 13 so far this year versus 16 last year. Kidnapping and abduction is up 50%. The domestic violence unit has had an increase in domestic violence cases, and a lot of those are being issued as domestic violence kidnapping cases. So it's not necessarily children that are being kidnapped more, it's just kidnapping charges in general. We also have the assault by hands, feet, and fists is up 106%, but aggravated assault total is only up a little over 2%. So it's 454 cases versus 444 last year. Our homicide infographs, there were 3 homicides investigated by Crimes Against Persons last month. All 3 of those were in St. Louis County police patrolled areas. And for the year, they've investigated 18, but those include municipalities, so it doesn't match our 13 that were in our jurisdiction.
We can go back one slide.
Yep.
For next month,
Mhm.
you said something that struck the assaults, the aggravateds, right, the more aggressive types of things, not that all of them aren't important. Can you aggregate those? I think you just said we're only up 1 or 2%, but next month would you or
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Captain Shellman, just make sure you highlight those at maybe a slightly higher level so we can see how assaults are doing overall.
Sure. And crimes against property, our strong arm robberies and robberies with other dangerous weapon are both up a good portion, but robberies combined, aggregated, it's down 4.1%, 70 reports versus 73 in 2022. And then we still have the increase of 42.5% in motor vehicle thefts that we've continued to see with the Kia and Hyundai thefts. Year to date, Kia and Hyundais alone are up 658% versus last year, and all other makes and models are down 27% combined. So we're still lessening that gap little by little, but it's still an issue.
Did Kia and Hyundai come up with their protection solution?
They released a program or something in mid-February, so it's probably going to take time for individual users to adapt those to their vehicles.
And same request on robberies as we had on assaults. You just did, but if you would just continue to highlight those at a
Absolutely.
macro level of all robberies, that'd be helpful too.
So am I correct in interpreting that we're seeing the same total number of robberies, they're just becoming more violent?
They're just being categorized differently. So robberies by firearm are down 23.6%. That's excellent. But then strong arm robberies by using your hands or other vehicle could be, or other weapon could be a vehicle. It's just how people are robbing people.
Okay.
And crimes against society, we're still seeing the decrease in the drug and narcotic violations, likely due to marijuana laws. And then we also have the DUIs. There's 238 for the year, which is an increase of 38.4% versus last year. 70% of those for this year all come from our highway safety unit. And calls for service. Our directed calls for service, every precinct other than North County saw an increase in directed calls for service over the average for the month of April. And North County is just a few shy of being at the average. And that goes along with our self-initiated calls, where most of the precincts are down in their self-initiated because they're responding to more directed. But North County was down with their directed, and they're much higher for their self-initiated. So that's what we want to see, especially with the 12-hour shifts and the extra manpower in North County. And top calls for April, sick cases generally always going to be the top directed call. Extra patrol will pretty much always be the top call for self-initiated as well. And lastly, we have our TSR data. A lot of the precincts are just slightly above the percent minority in the precinct. The TSR review committee is going to meet at the end of this month to dig deep into the numbers and look at them. They also met in March, and they didn't find any outliers in March. That's all I've got.
Questions? So as research and analysis stands back and looks at the numbers, what would you summarize for us, right? Take it all. You guys obviously focus on a couple of three things as you do it, right? You boil it up to some themes or some headlines. What would you tell us those themes or headlines are?
I think it's difficult to look at it on a month-to-month basis because it all tends to even out by the end of the year. But with this data that we had, January started off kind of high for everything. So now we're just like lessening the gaps as each month goes on. But then the summer will come, so crime always goes higher in the summer, and then it will even out again in the fall. So a general trend that tends to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
You
much.
did great.
You
Thanks.
did. You had just as much charisma as he did.
Appreciate it.
You know, when you talk about those numbers, it's like you just saw a little while ago that the first precinct numbers are down for are up for self-initiated calls because we're not getting many radio directed calls. Look at those numbers come June, July, see how they change. They'll be getting more directed calls. So you saw a number up there where use of forces were increasing, and we do a blue team on the use of force. If someone just gradually, a light resistance to an officer where an officer had to maybe grab his wrist to put the handcuffs on him, we would do a use of force on that. We're looking at a new policy for our response to resistance now. It's out for the command staff to evaluate right now. It's called de minimis force, where something as minor as that will not be classified as a use of force. There'll be documentation about it. There'll be a law kept on it. by the precinct commanders that, that type of force was used. It won't require a blue team. It won't require a BPS investigation, but it's going to lessen that number of use of force. A lot of our use of forces are just somebody just resisted putting their hands behind their back to be handcuffed. If you have to pull that hand out to be handcuffed, did we hurt them? Not, maybe with a wrist lock, maybe if that be the case, but not to the point where they have to be, medical attention had to be resisted. So those are the type of things that you're going to see fewer of those types of use of forces if this policy is approved. It's being looked at right now by the command staff, and eventually it'll get to you guys for review.
What's a blue team review, Chief?
I'm sorry?
You said blue team review. What does that
A
mean?
blue team is where use of force happens. The precinct sergeant, whatever, will initiate a blue team because there was force used. Maybe the person was injured, and that use of force based on the blue team will go to BPS for them to look at to determine whether an investigation will be needed.
I think we probably already have a couple of questions, but maybe we should save them for when that comes up.
I don't know, Chief, should we have a discussion on that right now?
I'm fine either way. I've got a couple of questions on it already too, but I haven't even read it. So dive in.
Maybe.
No, dive in.
Is the theory that we're gonna have like not gradients, like a spectrum? So right now everything falls within use of force, but is the goal to have a spectrum where we can say like, here are minor incidents, here are more significant incidents, so that when we're looking at the numbers, they mean more to us?
For every type of resistance that we have, depending on the degree of that resistance, we are allowed to do certain things. If you use your hands, we can use maybe a pepper spray if that's the type of resistance that you're referring to. We can go up a step above what the suspect can do as far as handling that resistance. And we have policy to state just what level you can use to settle that resistance, to resolve that resistance.
And so what you're considering right now at command staff is how you're going to be reporting that activity.
We call it a minimus, use of minimus force. I got that from an assessment that I was doing, and it looked pretty good because what it did, it lessened the number of uses of forces that the department was documenting. And it'll do the same for us. A guy resisted. It was not a big deal as to what the officer had to do to get him under control. There was no injury. There was no ambulance call for medical, none of that. And we were still doing a use of force, a blue team, a use of force investigation, which went to BPS for their analysis of it to determine whether the use of force was justified or not. A lot of this de minimis stuff, we won't have to be doing that.
I'm going to interpret Commissioner Schwerin's question a little differently because it's the one that I wanted to ask, which is, it always requires discretion, right? How much force did I use when I used force? Is it just a normal, I pulled his or her hand around, or were they resisting? Or all that provides discretion. We just want to make sure that we're appropriately capturing use of force when it's more than just de minimis, right? Where that gray area between discretion, where it hits policy, as I think what I'm personally probably a little worried about. So that's why I wanted to see how you categorize it, but it is a concern, and I think that might be where Commissioner Schwerin's going too. How do we make sure that we don't?
And even when we do that, even when the investigation results in a de minimis use of force, it will also be vetted by the sergeant prior to it going anywhere else. That sergeant and the commanders at the precinct will have to determine that, yes, what you did was a de minimis force. You did the proper documentation on it, so it ends right there. That sergeant could say that, it's more than that. So now we're going to do a blue team, and it's going to be sent to BPS for an investigation. It could get to BPS, and the BPS to say, well, that looks more like a de minimis force, so we won't even do anything with it. So,
but if it's de minimis,
they will be vetted.
If it's de minimis, it's not reported at all. So that's that gray area, right? That we just want to make sure that we keep our eye on how much and how extensive our use of force is.
De minimis is reported. There's a memo that the supervisor will write. It'll go in a file. It'll be kept at the precinct for a certain period of time.
Still reported.
All right, thank you. That's helpful. I missed that then the first time. Anything else?
Okay. Mr. Becker.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning.
Morning.
So we have 89 vacancies. That's up 2 in commission from last month. With professional staff, we're actually down 3 vacancies with 39, and that is composed of 15 security officer vacancies. That's even from last month. We're down 17 dispatchers. That's up 3 from last month, and there's still no vacancies in record clerks. So I think Lieutenant Molden is doing something good and his crew down there in records. And the graduation of Class 207 will be June 22nd at Merritt's. That remains at 13 county officers. There are 2 open enrollment and 11 municipal. Within the last month, we lost a municipal officer to testing failure. And Mr. Chairman, I think you had some questions, specific questions that I'll run through and hopefully we answer them. As I said, we expect to graduate 13 in the June class. We anticipate 12 entering the academy on June 26. We have 7 on final review board on Thursday. The chief is out of town that day, but I've already arranged a phone conference so we can make sure we get offers out to those people. Dispatch,
I'm sorry. So we have 12 and we're going to add another 7?
No, that includes,
That
the
includes the
anticipated 12
see.
includes those 7 on Thursday. And as I said, the dispatch has 17 vacancies. 5 are scheduled to start the academy, their dispatcher academy on May 15. We have 3 applicants in backgrounds in addition to those 5. For security, as I said, 15 vacancies. We have 3 applicants currently in backgrounds. The posting of the non-commissioned positions are continuous until they are filled. There are almost always additional applicants sitting in queue if we need to reach out to somebody with respect to a position that opens up currently. And as far as some promotional recruiting aspects, along with the social media office, Personnel Services is putting together a video demonstrating and explaining our PT process. You've heard me say before, we have about a 333 batting average for those who show up to the PT test. So for example, 9 may sign up, only 3 show up to the test, and then after that, only 1 may pass the PT test. So the hopes of posting this video on YouTube, applicants can see what the test entails and then also how to properly prepare for it. And there's also going to be a video with respect to the pre-recruit program. The concept is that if the academy doesn't start for 2 months, that particular applicant just got out of the military, for example, and they need a job, we can hire them, put them to work at recruit pay somewhere at headquarters or a precinct as needed. A little bit of a shift with respect to the drug policy and the drug use related questions. We're going to ask those questions ahead of time before we institute the IPMA test, because there's a slight cost to taking the IPMA test. So typically, we have in the past, they've taken the test, and then we get down to asking about their drug use, and they normally reveal or typically reveal that they are in violation of our policy and they have to wait a year and abstain from any type of drug use. So we're going to switch that around a little bit. Recruiting events all over the place. North County Tech High School Criminal Justice graduation is coming up here in May. A Faith Miracle Temple Career Fair. Fenton Fire Department has an open house that they've invited us to. STEM Academy Career Day. Recruiters will be doing community canvas, gyms, libraries, career training places, and so forth. And recruiters will be hitting the precincts soon to remind officers about both the selection process and the incentive of $800 for an inexperienced candidate that's hired and $1,000 for an experienced candidate that's hired. And like to end the HR update with a presentation from the Wellness Unit and Lieutenant Roach. And as he walks up here, I just want to remind everybody that he is a 3rd-generation law enforcement officer. I think wellness for him maybe started even before he became a law enforcement officer, but it certainly became an avocation about 15 years ago that Scott just took it upon himself to learn about wellness. He's very passionate about it. Now it's his vocation, and he is the commander of the wellness unit.
As he, Lieutenant, as you approach, 2 questions, please, and there may be more. On the 2 that we, sorry, let's go back to the academy. We've got 12 graduating. We've got 2 who haven't declared yet where they want to go. Any likelihood, any forecasting on where the?
13 are graduating, but I'm sorry,
You said that there were 2 who hadn't declared what they were just open? Is that the term we use?
Oh, open enrollment, yes.
Do we have any feel whether we will get?
They are not eligible for hire with St. Louis County, and that's why
So
they're
we're
open
at 13.
enrollment.
Thank you. All right, 13. And the second question, is there anything we can do? You said, I'm interpreting, and you said for the PT pre-academy, there's a PT video that they can watch. Is there a different way to look at that, to perhaps have a PT class for 2 months?
There already is that.
All right, thank you.
Some of the officers already attend. Officer Minor, a couple other officers, Officer Shelton, the recruiter, have Wednesday evening, I believe, PT training for those who are interested and willing to go, and they try to tell them what to expect, and they work out. So that's been going on for quite a while.
Thank you.
Lieutenant?
Good morning.
Sir?
That pop up. If I don't have this, it's going to get ugly.
There we go.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. I'll go as quick as I can. Mr. Becker asked me to give an update on the wellness unit and some of the things that we're working on that I've accomplished since January of 21 when the unit started. These are all race cars on a track, and I am the driver of all of those race cars. I'm always looking for volunteers and fuel, so kind of keep that in mind as we go along. This is not an all-inclusive list, just a couple of things that we're going to highlight. So just as a reminder, the unit was started in January of 21, and my job is to ensure the emotional, mental, and physical well-being of all of the employees and their families. Obviously, I don't do that by phone calls to everybody on every day, but I do that by offering different types of resources, different types of classes, workshops, making myself available. I also help navigate them to all those help services. The most underutilized resource, for example, that we have in our profession is the Employee Assistance Program, the EAP. So I help a lot of our employees, by the way, not just police officers, but we do sworn and pro staff, navigate those resources to get them the help that they need, including for their families. See a lot of kid issues, if you will, from some of our officers that have families that have children. So we're addressing those and knocking them off as we can. I also do a lot of critical incident response. I'll kind of talk about that here in a second, kind of as we get into it. So just want to give a couple updates. First and foremost, we took a step in the direction of physical fitness and nutrition. Finally, it's something I've been promising that we're going to do, but admittedly, it's a very tough kind of niche to get into. When you think of wellness, think of physical, and that's going to be a trunk with several branches, a tree trunk with several branches, but then think nutrition and physical fitness. That's a whole other tree. So getting into that, the first step we took was towards getting certifications through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. Basically, what we did is we have identified 4 employees, 3 law enforcement at the academy who are assigned to the academy, and 1 professional staff. And we paid for, we got certifications for them to be physical, personal trainer certification and nutritional science certification. And this wasn't a Wash U thing where they're doing 5 years. But this also wasn't a watch a 4-hour video, take a 5-question quiz, and congratulations, you're certified. This is a year-long process where there are ongoing quizzes, a real textbook. They were told when they embarked on this that we're going to have to put in probably a couple hours a week to study. There was a proctored final exam that they had to pass. So this was quite an endeavor for the 4 that went. Right now, I've got 2 that are certified in both, and I've got 2 that are in waiting because we staggered them in different areas. The idea behind this is that from a physical fitness point of view is you could walk up to one of those trained, certified trainers and say, I'd like to lose 10 pounds. I'd like to knock 30 seconds off my run. I want to do 5 more push-ups. And I sit down with one of these 4 folks and they can write out a plan, make sure I'm doing it right, a nutritional plan, evaluate what I've been doing, do an assessment, work on some goals. They might even work out with me. So that's what the idea is behind these 4 employees. The Police Foundation paid for their certifications, and they, like I said, they're on the process of doing it. One of the things that we also wanted to do, and I teased this during in-service, was we wanted to partner with First Form. First Form is a nutrition company and out of Supplement Superstore. You see them at grocery stores now too. Their campus is actually in Fenton, where the Chrysler plant used to be. It's a huge, huge place, kind of by Amazon. They have quite a footprint there. They've been huge supporters of law enforcement and specifically our department. They used to be located in Green Park. Well, their facility is amazing. And it's not open to the public, but we wanted to work with them to create a class where officers or employees could come and just kind of experience, kind of get on the track of health and fitness. And here's a flyer of our first class. We finally got this. It's post-approved. We are working with somebody at First Form, and thanks to the Academy, Sergeant Eldridge and Captain Kelly, we are having our first class on May 17th. And we're going to cover these things here, some exercise and movement, sleep recovery, things like that. The last hour of this course is actually going to be working out in their facility. So they're going to get up, they're going to get moving. And this is a facility that's not open to the public. It's only available to their sponsored celebrity athletes. But they're going to let us come in and they're going to show us how to work out and do things like that. So we opened this up. Sergeant Eldridge opened it up. 3 hours later, it was completely full. We went on a waiting list just like that. So now we're looking at additional sessions, but we're also looking at a phase 2. Phase 2 might include a cooking demonstration at the end. That's kind of one of the ideas being bantered around. The whole idea one of the ideas is to think about a 12-hour shift, and we need to do meal planning, we need to do sleep planning, things like that. So that kind of drove us a little bit on making some of these decisions about how we wanted this class to look. But again, post-approved coming up, we're going to have several more for sure. So quick update on the app. The wellness app, again, provided by the St. Louis Police Foundation. We've had it now for 2 years. And they have approved, they're going to go ahead and sign a contract, I believe, next week for an additional 3rd year. The aggregate data tells us that over 3/4 of our department has downloaded the app. I don't know who downloaded the app, so those are aggregate numbers, but we do know that the numbers show that there's a significant amount of employees. The bad news is that they are kind of good news. They're rolling out a new version of the app. Here, I just sat on a meeting yesterday, a Zoom meeting on how that's going to look and when we're going to implement it. Unfortunately, you're going to have to download the new app. So I don't like putting steps in the way of good things, and this is going to be a significant step. So everybody's going to have to basically get rid of the old app and download the new app. But I've looked at it. I saw it yesterday. I saw a demonstration on it. It's going to be amazing. A lot more aggregate data, a lot more opportunities, and there will be a public-facing side of this app as well. So that's coming, and the Police Foundation, again, they paid for that. They upped again for a 3rd year. So talk about our peer support team. This is what kind of kicked it off for me on my wellness journey to be the wellness guy for our department. Probably a decade ago, I started by just saying, hey, we need to get a peer support team, and I think we had one informally for a long time, but thankfully, since January, we have a formal peer support team. Right now, that team is at 24. Those are peer council approved. I have a council of 6 members that have approved all 24 candidates. We did a phase 2 a couple months ago. Phase 1, we started with about 12 active peers, and then we have 12 more coming. The numbers are off there because 2 of them are on maternity leave right now. So we have a 2-day training coming up here shortly where I'm going to be able to get a majority of those that are awaiting training, get them active. So again, huge. This is just a huge step in the right direction in law enforcement and specifically for our department, because sometimes officers, employees, they don't want to go to the EAP. They don't want to talk to a therapist. They want to talk to somebody kind of in the middle. And that's where your peer support team comes in. Because I'm funded by a partial grant from the DOJ, and that part of that grant is used to train the area to create peer support teams. So I am one of 3 instructors that is kind of leading the charge, and St. Louis County is kind of leading that charge as well, to help train area agencies, St. Charles County, Franklin County, Jefferson County, St. Louis Metropolitan. We're training police departments and officers within those departments to create a peer support team. There's a certain way to do that. There's certain pitfalls, and we take a 2-day course and we teach you how to do that, me and 2 other instructors. So far, we've done this class probably about 8 or 10 times, paid for by the DOJ. And for full disclosure, I do not get paid to help put on this class. We've trained up 27 agencies have represented, over 100 officers, employees are now trained peers. The EMPSC is the Eastern Missouri Peer Support Council. We started that about 1.5 years ago. You're looking at the vice president of that. The president is Chief Steve Lewis with Ellisville. We stole the model from CIT. So basically, we endorse training. We provide training. We're going to have a conference. We also will hook up other agencies and kind of create an interwoven network of peers. For example, if a Manchester police officer has an issue and wants to talk to a peer and he doesn't want to talk to a peer within Manchester, well, then we'll hook him up with somebody from Bridgeton or St. Louis County or Baldwin or whatever it might be. So we're going to kind of help create those relationships. Again, not everybody wants to go run and talk to a therapist. They would like to just talk to somebody in the middle, and that's what a peer does. So our next training is in May. It's already full, so we're going to be doing another one. And by demand of all the 100 plus officers and staff trained, we're going to have an advanced peer support training for law enforcement. That's coming as well. I created the first ever wellness unit library for our department. My grant administrator with the DOJ, he couldn't have been more excited about this. He said, this is a unique idea. He hasn't seen it yet. Basically, thanks to the grant, I went out and bought about 10 to 15 books, of copies of each of these books that you see. I sent out a list to the entire department a couple weeks ago with pictures, descriptions of the book. And it ranges in everything here from children's books, because I get a lot of requests from moms and dads of officers that want to have books for their kids, especially, what does mom do? What does dad do? Things like that. So there's some children's books in here. There's some general wellness books in here. I also get a lot of requests for relationship help, couples help, things like that. So there's some marriage books in there as well. I also have a retire inspired book. This reminded me of a conversation that Ms. Schwerin, you and I had a long time ago, which is we want to keep an eye on the wellness of our entire department from hire to retire. So one of the books there, the second one down on the right, that yellow, is 101 Rookie Mistakes. So there's your hire, and then retire inspired is going to be the end, right? So hopefully this takes off. I did get a lot of requests right off the bat for these books, and I want to remind everybody, these books are yours to keep. So once you get the book, it's yours. You don't have to check it back in or anything like that. So as we come to the end here, the mentorship program, that's Michelle Ryan and I are working on that. She's got the pro staff side of the house. I've got the sworn side of the house. 54 mentor council approved mentors, 37 law enforcement, 17 pro staff. I can tell you as of last week, all of the law enforcement mentees have a mentor. Unfortunately, on Michelle's side, and it's certainly not Michelle's fault, but on the pro staff side, they're short of mentors because we're short of mentors. It's a kind of a good problem to have. Good news is this is about to solve itself because it's a 6-month run, it's a 6-month cycle, and we're about 6 months into our first group. So as some of those mentors are coming off of their last one, they're already taking on a new one. I know Michelle is overachieving. She's taking on 2. And a couple other folks are probably going to be taking on a couple as we kind of have an overlap. So this will correct itself as it already kind of is, because organically this is growing. Organically, people are interested in this. We've got a great group of people that we've trained. Mr. Ashworth threw their money to open that training. And Mr. Banks, you opened the one before that. So I think we're going to get more and more as they come in. Critical incident stress management team of Greater St. Louis. This is regarding debriefs. Whenever we have a critical incident in our department, we do a debrief. It's in our policy, and it's something that I help with the logistics of. You're also looking at the vice president of this organization because I'm not busy enough. I'm always looking for something to do. So I'm the vice president of this, and it's made up of 40 first responders of fire, EMS, or police. I can tell you that for our department, in 2022, we did 7 debriefs, which is normal. And in 2023, so far, we've done 3. These are normal numbers for us. And for most law enforcement agencies of our size, I can tell you the most common critical incident that we debrief, and this is across the board pretty much for law enforcement, is pediatric incidents. Anything where the child is a victim. Police officers have a really hard time when there's a victim that is a child. It's worse if we have kids. It's even worse if we have kids the age of the victim. So we make sure that we keep an eye on our officers, and the supervisors are doing a fantastic job at letting me know when they think a critical incident has occurred. I compare this to an aircraft carrier doing a U-turn culturally, and I think we're in the good part of the turn right now. So the newer generation walking in the door, they care more about themselves mentally and physically than any generation before them. That's what the data shows, and I'm starting to definitely see that with the calls I'm getting, with the appreciation of these debriefs and things like that. So the last thing I was going to mention is something new that was introduced to me. I didn't give it much credence before, but now I have. Equine assisted therapy. I had never heard of it. I heard of it vaguely. I know when I first took over, or when I first started the wellness unit, I got calls from vendors. I still am getting those, and I got a call from a guy who says he wanted to be our equine, he wanted to provide our equine for us, and he said if we found a stable, he would provide us the horses. So Chief, if we ever decide to do that, I got a guy. So we do that. I always vet new programs for our employees. I always want to kind of be the first through the door on that before I start recommending it. So I went on a little field trip with me. Ann Vassman's in the top right corner. She's on my peer support council. She's at the EOC. The lower left is Kim Miner, who was promoted to sergeant. And on the lower right is Kelly Sibley. She was also promoted. She was attached to me for a while. And we went out there, and I got to tell you, this is amazing. It's an amazing concept. We went through what a group therapy would look like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like, smells like, all of that. And it was really, really amazing. We're actually going to have our first group that we're putting through here in May. So our first work unit in our department, equine assisted therapy, which is located in Wildwood in St. Louis County. They're willing to do the first one for us for free, just so we can kind of see what it's like. And they said that they would help us find funding sources in the future, because like anything else, it isn't free. So the one thing I will point out to you, interesting, is if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you see Kelly there, who's extremely pregnant in this photo. This was about a month or so ago. And when we walked in, the counselor, the LPC, they have a therapist on staff. That's who runs it. She said, watch. She said, you're going to see a horse walk right up to Kelly as soon as she gets into that ring. And exactly right. This horse walked right up to her. And I said, well, why is that? And she said, did you know horses can hear a human heartbeat within 4 feet? And she said that horse is going to be confused because Kelly has 2 heartbeats. And sure enough, that horse walked right up to her and was nudging her belly. It was really neat to see. So sorry I'm long-winded. I just want to kind of hit the highlights. I am ready for questions. Unlike Terry, I'm not going to go running off the stage here. So fire away.
I just want to commend you for attacking the whole emotional and physical and mental well-being of our department from so many different angles, because I know that each individual requires a different angle, and so it's important that we're looking at it from a lot of different perspectives, and you have certainly captured many.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and you're exactly right. I'm talking about 25-year officers, actually retired officers who I thought I'd never hear from. 25-year officers all the way down to the recruit that I'm hearing from, and it's good. It's good stuff. They woke up that day and said, I want to be a better version of myself instead of just tamping it down and trying to hide it or run from it. And I know that might be a foreign concept to a lot of people in the room behind me that have a lot of years on, but this is what this newer generation wants for sure. The idea is just to get healthier employees, pro staff and sworn.
I was really going to say much of the same thing that Commissioner Schwerer said. This seems to be a fantastic program, and something that people should not be ashamed of in terms of taking advantage of it. You put a lot of work into it, and I just commend you for that.
Thank you. We're extremely lucky as an agency, thanks to Chief and our executive command staff. We're one of only 2 agencies in the entire state that has a dedicated wellness unit. I believe Kansas City is the only other one that I know of where that is their primary job. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the luxury, and I think it's paying off with the men and women of our department for sure. So thank you for that.
Do you work with your Kansas City counterpart?
I see them at conferences, and I do talk to them pretty often. I actually have a closer relationship with Sergeant Tully in St. Louis City in Metropolitan. He's me there, but he's got 3 jobs. Wellness is one of those, and sir, don't get any ideas, please. But I work closely with him because, as you saw today, one of the critical incidents that we were involved in together was that shooting in Ferguson with city officers and county officers. We did a debrief for that. But I work very closely with him. We're both very forward-thinking. We both got great support from the foundation as well on a lot of these things that you see me talking about that the foundation has helped with. They're helping them with as well. They have an app as well, just for example, that they're funding. So
I will also echo my 2 peers. Thank you. It takes vision and takes leadership, takes perseverance, and anytime you start something new, and it's not unique to St. Louis County Police Department, it takes all 3 of those attributes plus a desire to care for people. So we appreciate that greatly, probably more than you realize. And I will echo something that Commissioner Hassler said, in a world where, take it in appropriate context, macho, right? I got to be strong, I got to be that. To ask for help is very hard to do, and to be able to do that, at least in an environment where I feel a little more comfortable doing it, no matter how big or tough, and it's not a male or a female thing, right? That macho isn't just about males, right? It's remarkable. So thank you for your leadership. We look forward for your vision as to what comes next, whether it's equine or something else. Thank you for that.
awesome.
I do have 2 questions, and they're going to come at this. It's really the same question coming at an outcome from 2 different directions. The first one is the more statistical approach. Do we have a feel for how often the app is not downloaded but utilized? How often somebody hits it? And so you're the technical side of, are they using it? What are they? Right, yes. That component of it.
Yes, we do get aggregate data. I know, for example, that the #1 clicked tab on the app right now is the self-assessments, which is good. And I know that within that, the #1 self-assessment is sleep. But again, aggregate data, we don't know who clicked on what.
Of course.
But the company, by their own admission, has kind of realized that their last one wasn't as robust, but this next one coming out is going to be, they made it a point to talk about how much more data we can get from it. But I can get some basic stuff, like what's clicked on, how often it's clicked on. For example, our peer support team, you can access any one of those peers on that tab and see the list of my 12 active peers and click on it, and it'll call them right away. So I can see what's being clicked on. But yeah, I guess better stats are coming.
Okay, and so the stats, remember, that's the technical side, right? You started to get into the other half of the equation, which is with personal privacy protected, do we know what they're clicking on and why, so we can get more proactive through your vision, right? You can say, okay, we've got a lot of people who are focused on this. How do we proactively help them so they don't? That's really what the more important piece is. The statistics just tell us the overall, high level utilization, the
Right.
why people are clicking and what they're looking for to solve. If the new software does that again in a protected environment, that would be spectacular.
Yes, and I believe that's what it will do. That's what it's intended to do. I get quarterly usage reports from the EAP as well, and they give me an idea similar to the app. I can see what people are asking for help for. Unfortunately, I can't get too far drilled. I'd love to drill down into why they are, work-life balance. Okay, well, what does that mean? What can I help you with? But a lot of times, just from talking to people, just from talking to officers, they'll say, hey, we're looking for this. Perfect example, couples help, couples counseling, things like that. We did a dinner with a local church because people were asking for stuff like that. So I found a way to just start talking to the masses. That aggregate data is great, but unfortunately, it's not 100%. So,
Okay, thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What analogy? Your car, where do you get gas from?
Where do I get gas?
Yeah. Your car needed gas.
He's driving all the race cars.
I've got all these projects of race cars.
He's looking for gas.
Drivers.
Airplane making a turn.
Oh,
Aircraft
aircraft carrier.
That's a slow turn.
All that's
Slow
copyrighted,
turn.
so if you want to.
Now you're gonna get us to ride hard.
That's right.
I'm glad he's going to the smells about the equestrian part. He said it. feels and smells.
12-hour shift. Sorry? Sir.
How are you? Lieutenant Colonel Cox is on vacation this week, and he'd be here, but he's asked me to step in and talk about our 12-hour shift survey. I don't think that there was I'll start from the beginning here. And so at the end of last year, as you guys know, we moved to 12-hour shifts for the remaining 6 precincts in the Division of Patrol. We sent a survey out on March 17th to see how it was going for the officers for the entire division. So they were given about 2 weeks to respond to it. 258 total responses with about 117 people leaving comments and questions and feedback on what was going on. And to break it down, basically make it very simple, is that about 62% found it to be kind of a neutral, positive transition. And I'll give you the question. With 1 quarter complete, how do you feel about 12-hour shifts? About 62% were neutral or positive on it. Where about 38% had very negative feelings about it. And then the next question was, how was your adjustment to the 12-hour shift? How has your adjustment been to the 12-hour shift? Again, 61% were about neutral or positive. And again, 40% were negative. And then the last question, in regards to secondary employment, has the 12-hour shift altered the amount of secondary employment you have worked? Again, there were 258 total responses. 43% actually advised that they don't work secondary. And 24%, 25% said it was no change in their secondary. And about 33%, they said it reduced their secondary or impacted their secondary income. To get into the details a little bit on some of the comments, there were some positive comments, there were negative comments. To focus in particularly on the negative ones, to make sure we understand how it impacted the officers on the street, is that when you work 12-hour shifts, your day is used up. There's not a lot left in the day or in the gas tank to get things done, particularly when it comes to time with your family and working out and keeping that wellness going. Particularly difficult on families with small children. There's things that came up in the comment sections. It impacted their workouts, impacted their secondary incomes, were some of the common themes. And they had some concerns over overlay shifts. That they're not sure if the overlay shift was going to impact it, particularly during the summer months when we all know that crime is going to increase, which means the calls to service will increase. So
when you say there were comments about overlay,
mm-hmm.
Is there anxiety about what it's going to look like, or like specific concerns we won't have enough overlay?
So in the first precinct, there is a full-blown dedicated overlay, which we know, which was we figured out during our pilot program. Right now, there are no current other overlay shifts there. Something that we've had on the department for many, many years is an overlay shift to make sure that the officers that were getting off on time. So now we have a shift change where at the end of it, if they get a late call, they may be kept over. So we're making sure we're going to be watching calls for service this year. We're going to be seeing how tracking overtime, and then really speaking to the officers and the squad supervisors on how many times do we think that this happened? Because calls for service, aren't spread equally throughout the Division of Patrol. And so there are some precincts where I think particularly 100% without question, the first precinct is obvious when we have to have an overlay. The fourth precinct, and I'll use Captain Shellman's words, you can make a case for the fourth precinct. On so many of the other ones where we've really looked at it, we really need to look at particularly Jennings, particularly second precinct, third precinct, and fourth precinct, or the rest of those call. Do we need it? Is it a good use of stationing our officers at that time? And I'll use Colonel Cox's words, it's not, we're not bringing more people in, we're going to be adjusting time when they're working. we would have less officers at the start of the day or at the end of the day to make sure to appropriately staff that overlay shift if we deemed that precinct would need one. But that was one of their concerns, is a rise of anxiety about 4 p.m. or 4 a.m. when they're getting ready to go off after they've spent 12 hours. They don't want to be kept, for hour 13, hour 14, hour 15. It just starts to become too much. And those results have been sent out to the officers, actually out to the entire division of, actually the whole police department. Colonel Cox has decided, and from feedback from the wellness unit when we went to the pilot programs in 2022, we'd reached out to Lieutenant Roach, and he had said that from reaching out to counterparts throughout the country who've made this switch, we need it to go about 6 to 9 months to start really getting appropriate feedback, accurate feedback on what's going on, giving them some time to adjust. Because many of the other counterparts around the country, when they've surveyed their people at the beginning like we did, it changed, it improved. They were able to adjust their lives accordingly. In many ways, make things a little bit better for their lives, and the surveys tended to reflect that. But we're thinking, Colonel is thinking somewhere around Thanksgiving or Christmas is the next survey. And to see how it is, how did they handle the summer, how they handle the fall, and what's the overall feeling after about a year. Any questions?
I had 4. You answered the 4th one just now, which is what is our peer group experience, peer department's experience. So it sounded like a pretty good return rate on the survey. So that's probably what, mid 40-ish, 258 people is
240. We're in the high 400s right now, and that's including supervisors and stuff. So 258, I was happy with that response, and I was happy with, and many of them took the time to answer the questions, the 177. It wasn't just they weren't just complaining. They were very clear and concise on how it had affected their families or how it positively affected their lives. So the feedback was good, and the quality of response was there also.
excellent. The only other question I have left is on the secondary employment.
Yes.
And the implications there, is there, so this is not about the survey, it's about the practical side of what we've implemented and then the implications on our employees. Is there any, because of the increase in overtime, at least as we think we're having, offset some of the loss that they think they're feeling from secondary employment? In other words, it's one thing to put it in each bucket and say, well, it's not work, therefore I'm losing secondary. But if I'm working and I'm getting more overtime on average, it does offset a little bit of potentially offsets a little bit of the loss of secondary.
It does. For me to answer that confidently, I feel like I need a larger sample size.
Fair enough. Thank you. And it may be inaccurate. It's one of those, that's why I asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Anything else? Thanks, sir. Appreciate the update.
Thanks, Sarge. Secondary work software, on roll.
Good afternoon.
Were you looking to see whether we were going to implement?
Well, I just wasn't sure if it was, I realized that we have actually crossed the noon mark.
Threshold, yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Chief, I'd like to thank you for sandwiching me between 12-hour shift survey results and the critical staffing decisions. I'll be honest, it's always hard to follow stories about horses that can hear heartbeats. So the fact that you've buffered me with Sergeant Conrady and his numbers actually makes this a little bit easier.
It's a sweet spot. Sweet spot.
It is just definitely a sweet spot. No, in an attempt to keep it relatively brief. The reality is the update on the secondary software is that we are hoping to implement that by the end of next month. So just to kind of give you an idea, this has been a long, arduous process going through procurement. So it's been over a year that we've been kind of in this process of implementing it, identifying a vendor. We've done that. Obviously, 2 months ago, I think the board approved the contract with Roll Call, which is the selected vendor. At this point, then we began the policy drafting. So we were kind of redoing the entire policy on secondary employment to include the new secondary software product. That has actually gone out to the stakeholders. We anticipate to get all of the kind of feedback by next week with the idea that it's presented to the board for approval next month. The timing of getting the policy approved and then aligning that with the training. So again, we had roll call in about 6 months ago. They did some initial training. The reality is there's no reason to train anybody until we have a policy on it. So it's hard to answer questions as they come up until we've gotten some direction from the department as policy-wise. So once the policy is approved by the board, then we'll probably within 14 days. And again, now we're trying to coordinate with roll call to make sure that their trainers are available to come here to do the training. They'll do on-site training for our coordinators and for the roll call administrators again. So it's really just a timing issue now. So policy gets approved, and then it's just a matter of coordinating with roll call to bring them in to train everybody. But the end game, so we have a weekly meeting, a weekly kind of strategy meeting with the folks at roll call. So that's every Thursday. And the end game is to have it live by like July 1st. That's kind of where we are. So I would be remiss if I didn't thank Jacqueline Lamb, and I think she's still here. Captain Shellman, Jacqueline Lamb, Sergeant Naughton, there's been a few others. The FOP, the members of ESOP have been kind of vital. Obviously, revamping a policy of this magnitude that impacts the number of employees that it does has required a lot of feedback, and those folks have been vital to make sure that we're kind of in position to be where we are now. So, questions? Perfect. Told you, Scott. That was like 3 minutes.
I'm going to hopefully end this with some of our staffing concerns that you wanted to discuss. So many months ago, when I first started on this department, we were working 8-hour shifts. At some point, years later, I don't know what year it was, we looked into a program of going to 10-hour shifts, and we paid somebody to take us through how to schedule 10-hour shifts. Our problem with the 10-hour shifts is that we didn't have the manpower to do 10-hour shifts as they did the study, but we did it anyway. And our schedule makers, sergeants in the precincts, lieutenants in the precincts, made all kinds of adjustments to make 10-hour shifts work for us, and was going on pretty well. Then we started losing people. We started losing personnel to do the 10-hour shifts. It got to a point where we needed to look at doing something else, so we did the 1-year study on the 12-hour shifts, hoping that the manpower would help us with the 12-hour shifts. So that's what we did. We went to 12 hours in December of last year for the entire department to go to 12-hour shifts. We did our numbers. Colonel Cox did his numbers on the people that we needed to do 12-hour shifts. And Colonel Cox has probably the busiest division on this department. He has more movements within his division than any other division on this department. And he moves people, making adjustments, making number adjustments just about every day to make things work. And we came up with a number, he did, after doing some study, a number that we needed to make 12-hour shifts work. And it worked for a minute, but those numbers, it changed real quickly, realized, we needed more people, even when he gave us that number. Again, I don't blame him for that. He did, like I said, more people moving than anybody. If I had to deal with those numbers by myself, no telling where this department would be. So he's done a hell of a job with that. But at the same time, he decided we needed more people. So we kept pushing the 12-hour shifts as best as he could with the people that he had. And we waited until the very last minute before we had to make some moves, some personnel adjustments to make 12-hour shifts work for him. So probably about 3 weeks ago, we finally made those moves. We took some people from some of the other units that we had, put them back in personnel, put them back in patrol to help his numbers and work in the 12-hour shifts. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. Some of the people were not happy about the moves and they never even reported to the but I don't want to get into that, okay? But those people were there and he's doing the best that he can to make 12-hour shifts work for him now. Is there going to be a time where we may need to cut some services that we have? We don't know yet. We didn't cut any when we moved. I think it was, 8 people that we moved to help him with patrol from different units. PAL, diversity and inclusion. We moved some from a detective, from auto theft, burglary, crime scene, put them back in patrol to help with those numbers. that's where we are with our numbers right now. Again, don't know what it's going to bring in the future. Hope we don't have to cut any services. We didn't this time. We still have people working those units, PAL in particular. That's just where we are now. My goal is to make sure that, some of our major units are filled. I don't want to cut down on people working DCI. I don't want to cut down people, working homicides, things like that. So I try my best to keep them filled. And that's pretty much where we are with our numbers right now.
I think the message that we hear, at least I hear, is that unless or until we have an influx of candidates and therefore officers that might come from somewhere else, we're going to continue to evaluate this and make decisions as we need to in order to make sure that we're.
I know Colonel Cox evaluates this every day. I know him and Deputy Chief Ludwig look at these numbers on a regular basis just to see where we are and to see how well we can work with the numbers that we have. Again, we're doing everything that we can to not cut services.
Should be an outreach to 1,200 people in your department to say, bring us one qualified potential candidate, just one, each and every one of you, one potentially qualified candidate. It would be extraordinarily helpful.
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? So,
Call to arms.
that's all I have, sir.
Anything else?
Ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thank all of you.
Thank you.
All right, next agenda item is approval of the minutes from the April 12th, 2023 meeting. May we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move we approve those minutes.
A second enough.
Thank you. Any further discussion on those minutes? Any edits, corrections at this point? All in favor of approving the minutes from our April 12th, 2023 meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any incoming communications?
Wait,
Oh,
didn't we have two meetings? Wasn't there another meeting?
a second meeting.
I didn't think so.
We had one where we went immediately into closed session.
Don't we have to approve those minutes also?
I don't believe we approved the minutes for closed session.
But the meeting where we went into closed session.
All right, you know what, let us follow up on that.
There are two sets of minutes, so I just want to make sure that we approve. Did that vote approve both of the minutes from the meetings on April 12th?
I didn't interpret it that way.
Okay.
Since our other meeting was out on the 15th or something, we came
No,
back.
they're both on the 12th.
Oh, that's right, because we're up north.
So
Yeah.
I'll move that we approve the minutes from the other meeting on April 12th. It's in our packet.
Yes. All right, may we have a second to, well, let's just redo it again.
Second.
May we have a motion to approve both meetings from our both meetings on April 12th?
I move that we do that.
Thank you.
I second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you for raising the question. All in favor of approving minutes from both our meetings on April 12th, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for correcting it. Any incoming communications? Anything outgoing? Very good. All right. Any old business? Any new business? We have 9 contracts. There are 9 contracts and 1 MOU. The 9 contracts are all for the CMPA. The 1 MOU is with the FBI. I'm going to suggest, just for sake of brevity, we do 5 and 5. So we'll do 5 contracts for CMPA in round 1, and then we'll do 4 CMPA contracts and the FBI MOU in round 2. Does that work?
Yes, sir.
All right, first 5 contracts. The first is a professional services agreement with Advanced Police Concepts, LLC. It is a new contract with the CMPA for an instructor to teach a program entitled Advanced Report Writing on July 6th and 7th, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $3,500. The second is a professional service agreement with Law Enforcement Risk Management Group, Inc., a new contract for an instructor to teach a program entitled Investigating Cases of Child Homicide and Unexplained Deaths of Children on July 11th and July 12th, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $6,000. The third professional service agreement is with Randy Means and Associates. It is a new contract for an instructor to teach a program entitled Creating and Maintaining a Well-Disciplined Organization on August 7th and August 8th, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $5,000. The fourth is a professional service agreement with 6 Layer Concepts and Consulting, LLC. It is a new contract for an instructor to teach a program entitled Human Terrain Mapping and Behavior Pattern Recognition Workshop on June 19th and 20th, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $4,900. And the fifth in this group is a recommendation to approve a professional service agreement with Patrick E. Horeen. It is a new contract for an instructor to teach a program entitled Instructor Development on August 7th through the 11th of August, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $1,700. May we have a motion to approve the 5 contracts for the CMPA just mentioned?
I move that we approve these 5 contracts.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any further conversation on the 5 contracts? All in favor of approving these 5 contracts for the CMPA, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The second 5, again, 4 contracts for CMPA and 1 for an MOU, which we'll identify separately when we get there. The first of the next 5 is a professional service agreement with Professional Law Enforcement Training, LLC. It is a new contract for an instructor to teach a program entitled Knock and Talk Investigations on July 19th, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $3,350. The second is a professional service agreement with Advanced Police Concepts, LLC. It is a new contract for an instructor to teach a program entitled Marijuana, a Colorado Perspective on August 3rd, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $3,500. The third is a professional service agreement with Professional Law Enforcement Training, LLC. It is a new contract for an instructor to teach a program entitled Patrol Officer Drug Investigations on July 20th and 21st, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $5,550. The fourth is a professional service agreement with Advanced Police Concepts. It is a new contract for an instructor to teach a program entitled Supervisor Report Review on July 5th, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $1,750. And the fifth that we have is a member of understanding with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It is a new memorandum of understanding between St. Louis County and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to continue our participation in the Violent Crimes Safe Streets Task Force. This agreement provides overtime and vehicles for several county officers assigned to intelligence, drug enforcement, special response unit, and some precincts. The Violent Crimes Safe Streets Task Force targets violent criminals to include street gangs and dangerous fugitives. May we have a motion to approve the 4 CMPA agreements and the MOU with the FBI?
I move that we approve the 4 professional service agreements and the memorandum of understanding with the FBI.
Thank you. May we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further conversation on those 5 agreements? All in favor of approving the 4 CMPA contracts and the 1 MOU with the FBI, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 9 new agreements and an MOU with the FBI. Thank you. Moving to general orders, we have a general order for GO 23-117 Unmanned Aircraft System.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As the chief mentioned, Captain Shulman is out of the state at a CALIA conference, so you get me instead. So let's go ahead and get started. First general order up for your approval this afternoon is 23-117, which is the Unmanned Aircraft Systems. Revisions to this order include a privacy statement, the addition of the new indoor UAS deployment method, and the attachment of the FAA regulation about licensing. As always, this has been to the FOP, Diversity and Inclusion, Ethical Society, and the County Counselor's Office, as well as command staff, both executive and regular command staff. I apologize for the memo that you received. I will appropriately chastise Captain Shulman upon his return. But are there any questions about this general order?
I did have a couple.
Sure.
It is in section 3D under evidence.
Okay.
So the section above, it talks about what can happen with these unmanned aircraft, and it talks about audio, but there's no audio listed in the evidence section. Is audio not allowable evidence?
Jennifer, can you help with that?
While she's looking at that, I will tell you I had to go to the dictionary to look up a word in section 4B2, curtilage. I did not know what curtilage was.
I do, so I can answer that.
Answer that for us,
Yeah.
please.
It's kind of the area around the area that you maintain. So you have additional privacy restrictions on curtilage that you wouldn't necessarily have to an open space. So there's kind of different levels of privacy expectations when it comes to a policy of this. Obviously, your home, you maintain, you have privacy restrictions there, but the curtilage would be the area around your home that you still maintain. So you have an expectation of privacy in that area as well.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes, sir.
Puts it in context. While Jennifer's looking, I'll continue unless colleagues have questions. This looks like it's an updated policy, but it
Correct.
didn't have a replace on there.
So who wrote it? Jacqueline, Kim?
Kim?
It is a replacement, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so which one, does it cancel 117? I mean, it'll update 117? Right.
Very good, thank you. And I assume we use best practices to make some of these edits on curtilage and some of that other stuff.
Yes, sir. So Kim can jump in if she needs to. So shout, Kim, if you need to. But I was in the unit in special operations when we drafted the first order. It did, these updates capture some of the improvements since then for those best practices that you're referencing.
Great, thank you.
I can't answer the technical question of whether or not there's audio. So I don't know if it's just an error between the two or if there's an audio issue.
So why don't you shoot your question to me one more time so I can.
So in the earlier section, it talks about what a device can pick up.
Yes.
And it mentions audio, but when it gets, the definition of evidence does not include audio. So Jennifer hit the point. Is audio, is it just oops, we missed the word audio, or is there a legal issue with audio can't be evidence and therefore it was intentionally left out? That's all I was trying to get to.
I would suspect the former, not the latter. So I think it's probably it. Would you agree with that?
I would assume if the unmanned aircraft can pick up audio, it would be evident.
Right.
I don't know the answer if the unmanned aircraft can pick them up.
So
May I make a suggestion?
So why
that
don't-
we go ahead and pick this up? We will go ahead and approve.
Just add that to the definition.
We'll vote on whether to approve it or not, but we'll vote to approve it on if it does need to be included, our approval will include it. If it's not to be included, then our approval will say leave it out. Does that work? Board, does that work?
Yes, if you.
I'll let one of our legal people define that better than I can. So,
Okay.
all
I
right.
move that we approve this general order contingent on adding the word evidence to section
Audio to section 3D.
Evidence definition.
Evidence definitions.
if these unmanned aircraft systems pick up audio that becomes part of the package of evidence, and thus leaving the word evidence out turned out to be a typo.
Audio.
Audio. What did I just say?
Evidence.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was not clear.
Sound
Should I
like
say it
me.
again? Okay. I move that we approve this motion contingent on adding the word evidence to section 3D if the unmanned aircraft system picks up audio and it is therefore appropriate to be included in the definition of evidence.
Much better. Thank you.
Good.
May we have a second of that?
I second
motion?
that.
Oh, yes.
Finish your point.
In the alternative, if unmanned aircraft systems do not pick up audio and therefore it would not be appropriate to include that in the word evidence, I move that we approve this motion as is without including the word audio in section 3D.
I'm going to suggest we try that one more time. That's not that it's wrong. It's just, it may pick up audio. It just may not be evidentiary. It may not be able to use. That was the only correction, suggestion I would
think I'm
make.
misunderstanding what we're agreeing to then.
So the basic question is, was audio intentionally or unintentionally left out of evidence?
Okay.
That's the way I would
Okay.
define it.
I move that we approve this general order to add the word evidence to the definition of section 3D if the intention of the department is to include audio as part of evidence, if the intention is not to include audio as part of evidence, am I getting this right? Okay. I move that we approve this general order as currently written.
Good. Yes? All right.
All sounded great to me.
It's clear as
All right.
mud.
Should it
Yeah.
be in both or should it be in one, not in the other?
Yeah,
All right.
I mean,
May we have a second of Commissioner Schweren's motion?
You seconded.
You already did?
Yeah.
All right, second. I hate to ask this question. Any further conversation?
No.
No. All in favor of approving
Whatever. We just
whatever we approving, intentionally or unintentionally left in or left out, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank
all
you.
right, we will get that clarified, cleaned up, and get it to you, whichever version it ends up being for your signature.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll chastise Captain Shellman for that as well. So moving on, we also have a revision to the Park Rangers Manual. It has been through the same set of reviews as the general order, as is traditional here. So it provided some updates based on some new House bills and some county ordinances that redefines park ranger vehicles as emergency vehicles, which allows them to conduct traffic stops. Previously, they weren't allowed to do that. It also cleaned up and included some language that gives updates to definitions, inspections of firearms, required hours of training, and discipline. This was put together by Captain Fansteel, who is in the room. So if you have any questions about this manual and the revisions to it, I have your subject matter expert here to answer them for you.
So that was nicely done.
Any questions that I or Captain Fansteel can answer for you?
No.
Outstanding.
Captain Van Sil, on behalf of the board, we do thank you and your team for updating the Park Ranger Manual. We do appreciate that, so thank you for that. And Deputy Chief, thank you for hitting the highlights of what changed. That's always helpful to us to stop there. We have a motion to approve the updated Park Ranger Manual.
I move that we approve the update of the, I can't talk, I'm sorry. Of the Park Ranger
Do
Manual.
we have a second?
I second that motion.
Further conversation on the updated Park Ranger Manual? All in favor of approving the Park Ranger Manual as rewritten, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you both, sirs. All right. Do we have anything from public forum standpoint? Anything out there? All right. The Board of Police Commissioners may vote to go into closed meeting for legal advice and review of claims and lawsuits involving the Police Department, Section 610.0211 RSMO and Section 114.020.11 SLCRO, in discussion of employee and personnel matters, Sections 610.0103, let me do it again. And discussion of personnel and employee matters, Sections 610.0213 and 13 RSMO and Sections 114.020.13 and 13 SLCRO. May we have a roll call on moving to closed session?
We need a motion.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we do.
I move that we move
Thank
into
you.
closed session.
Second. Any further conversation? Amy, would you now do the roll call?
Commissioner Ashford?
Yes.
Commissioner Banks?
Yes.
Commissioner Hassler?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoll?
Yes.
We are in closed session.
We're not doing
We're back from our closed session. We had one vote in closed session, and that was returned to the open session. The roll call vote, and of the three commissioners that are remaining, each voted in the yes, the affirmative to return to open session. And with that, we will conclude the meeting. We have a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Second.
Any further conversation around motion to adjourn?
No.
Amy, would you roll call vote for adjournment, please? Yes.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.
Chief, what do you say?